Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. More today on the war in Syria, but first, we bring you a report on a community in California whose LGBT residents had their voices heard by a local school district. Now, Tucker Carlson, commentator for Fox News, gave a report entitled "The Gay Agenda in Government Schools." He makes the point in his report that parents used to teach their own children about bullying, but now they've dumped that responsibility on the schools. Just outside of San Francisco, California, in Alameda County, the children this year will be learning the 4 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic, and re-education. Now, this change was due to a local group of gay couples that is pushing a proposal called Lesson Number 9, an anti-bullying lesson plan for elementary schools.
Now, it will teach children in kindergarten about LGBT or lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender lifestyles. One gay resident stated in response as to why this proposal was being presented to the school board, he said, "I'm a gay dad. I've been with my partner for 15 years, he said, and we've raised both our children since birth. We need to address the issues of harassment, and we needed to address the issues of visibility, and the district answered this call."
Assistant Superintendent Margie Sherritt confidently spoke at the meeting defending the LGBT proposal. She said Alameda School District is acting appropriately in response to both anecdotal knowledge and data that anti-LGBT harassment does occur in our schools as it does in other schools across the state and country. Now, remember, we are talking about kindergarten through 5th grade here for these levels that she's saying these incidences took place. Now, Fox News later asked Mrs. Sherritt to provide the data that she referenced on LGBT bullying. In an email, she replied, "I have referred you to the district's legal counsel. It is appropriate that they respond." And of course, no response was ever given.
Research done by Fox News showed these numbers, however. Of course, out of the 140,000 schools in the United States from kindergarten through college, the FBI documented 135 biased incidents based on sexual orientation in 2007. But none of these 135 incidences are specific to grades K through 5. They also did not find any data evidencing bias incidents based on sexual orientation at the elementary school level in 2007 or in any other year.
Dion Evans, pastor and education activist, spoke out against the proposal. He said, "LGBT, I classify them as the new bullies on the block. The school is not there to teach my child the social issues of life. That's my job," he said. "The problem is there's a group of adults who are trying to superimpose their ideology on some children, instead of just preparing teachers how to handle bullying or how to handle offensive language."
Oh, he's right. It does start at home.
That's right.
The school board's meeting went on for 10 hours, during which a heated debate took place between LGBT couples and traditional families. On one side, angry gay and lesbian parents trying to make their case that elementary school children should be taught to accept their non-traditional ways. They even called upon a 16-year-old boy, openly gay, who spoke about giving up life due to the bullying he experienced.
Now, on the other side of the room, more angry parents. Dion Evans made this point again. He said, "My child has been the product of bullying because she's black. She has never viewed a single video in the classroom like Eyes on the Prize, The History of the Buffalo Soldier, or African American Woman Writers from the 19th Century. Now, however, I am not requiring Alameda Public School District, he said, who is already strapped for cash, to incorporate these changes because I know, he said, how to successfully parent, educate, and instill values of self-worth in my child.
There you go. Karen England, Executive Director, Capital Resource Institute, and an advocate for traditional family values, was also at the meeting. She brought up one of the books the school district was planning to use should the proposal be passed, saying, you're looking at a book and it's called And Tango Makes Three. That for 3 years in a row was the most challenged book. Now, it's about two gay penguins who raise a baby penguin, and of course, in the book, they live happily ever after. So again, nothing in this book about bullying or harassment, which they're lobbying, for proposal against bullying and harassment towards gays. It's all about two male penguins, she is stating. The kids with the traditional values are the ones who are considered bullies, and no one's there to advocate for them.
After the lengthy debate was done, the board ended up voting 3-2 in favor of the LGBT proposal. So now Alameda County second graders will be required to read And Tango Makes Three, and by third grade, watch That's a Family, a documentary used by the Respectful for All project to teach the different shapes of families today. And of course, you have either two dads or two moms in that program that they're required to watch.
Yeah, definitely a different shape. Karen England went on to say the idea that they want to force this on children and parents and not even allow parents to opt their children out proves there's an agenda and they want to force this down these young kids' throats, she said. This battle isn't over yet. Of course, 14 states around the country now have bullying laws that include sexual orientation. So that means that this scene that was played out in Alameda will be replayed in schools across the country.
Well, turning our focus now to the agenda in the Euphrates region. YPN's Larry McGee has a report on the government's response to the latest move by Syria and its allies, which some are saying is starting to appear like a stalling tactic. Now, Larry, what was Secretary Kerry's position in the House of Representatives this week?
In a meeting with the Armed Services Committee this week, Secretary Kerry started boldly by saying, this cannot be a process of delay. This cannot be a process of avoidance. It has to be real. It has to be measurable, tangible. And he said he wants everyone to know it is exceedingly difficult to fulfill those requirements. We are waiting for that proposal, he stated, but we are not waiting for long. The president will take a hard look at it, but it has to be swift. It has to be real. It has to be verifiable. It cannot be a delaying tactic. And he went on to say that if its quartet allies of the UN Security Council sought to be a vehicle to make that happen, then that cannot be allowed to simply become a debating society. Chiming in his regards, Defense Secretary Hagel added, all of us are hopeful that this option might be a real solution to the crisis, yet we must be clear-eyed and sure it is not a stalling tactic by Syria and its Russian patrons. For this diplomatic option to have a chance at succeeding, the threat of U.S. military action, the credible, real threat of military action must continue. Telling words with the familiar quack, helping to identify the old system, which is back to breathing threats and using military force. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan Jeff, back to you.
It'll be interesting to see how things unfold. Continuing with the events concerning Syria, Secretary Kerry, when he spoke recently in Geneva, said concerning the Syrian chemical weapons process of destruction, he said, we will seek in the process of the UN in order to make this a global effort, help from our international partners, and we're convinced that this will be a test of the international community's commitment to the Chemical Weapons Convention and to the importance of restraining chemical weapons and weapons of mass destruction.
Kerry continued, I think that the global community will participate and this can be achievable. As to where it is destructed, the experts really need to make determinations about individual weapons. Some can be destroyed on site, others can't. And that's something they'll have to be a part of the CWC process that will be contained in the extraordinary procedures that we've called for.
Kerry's Russian counterpart on the issue continued in the address by saying, he spoke to a translator, he said, as we have heard, there were other countries which were willing to pay for war, pay the war, pay to go to war. I'm sure there will be countries that will be willing to pay for and he says, and I quote, a peaceful solution of this problem.
And now to the subtle events of the Vatican. In a recent letter in the Italian newspaper, the Pope recently reached out to atheists and agnostics. This was a letter to La Repubblica in response to editorials the paper's owner wrote over the summer. The owner, who is agnostic, had asked the Pope if the Christian God forgives those who do not believe and do not seek faith.
The Pope answered personally, signing his own name, Francesco. Reportedly, his response was pretty windy, running over 2,500 words. His response was, quote, given that God's mercy has no limits, if he is approached with a sincere and repentant heart, the question for those who don't believe in God is to abide by their own conscience. Listening to it, referring to their conscience, and abiding by it means making up one's mind about what is good and what is evil. So just totally leave it up to everybody to make their own decisions.
Sounds like do whatever you feel like doing.
Yeah, that's why we are in the state we're in right now.
Now, according to the Telegraph, the paper's owner didn't expect the Pope to respond so thoroughly and with such kindness. Now, the Pope has been breaking papal norms, including making personal phone calls to admirers, washing the feet of female prisoners, and in a recent statement concerning homosexuality said, "Who am I to judge?"
According to new research, Francis is rated favorably by 8 out of 10 Catholics, and that is throughout all ranges within the Catholic world.
Now, to close us out for today, President Obama addressed the nation this week in the options that he has regarding the Syrian crisis. One of those options is the peaceful solution. Take a look at what he had to say.
Finally, many of you have asked, why not leave this to other countries or seek solutions short of force? As several people wrote to me, we should not be the world's policeman. I agree. And I have a deeply held preference for peaceful solutions. Over the last 2 years, my administration has tried diplomacy and sanctions, warnings and negotiations, but chemical weapons were still used by the Assad regime. However, over the last few days, we've seen some encouraging signs, in part because of the credible threat of U.S. military action, as well as constructive talks that I had with President Putin. The Russian government has indicated a willingness to join with the international community in pushing Assad to give up his chemical weapons. The Assad regime has now admitted that it has these weapons and even said they joined the Chemical Weapons Convention, which prohibits their use. It's too early to tell whether this offer will succeed, and any agreement must verify that the Assad regime keeps its commitments. But this initiative has the potential to remove the threat of chemical weapons without the use of force, particularly because Russia is one of Assad's strongest allies. I have therefore asked the leaders of Congress to postpone a vote to authorize the use of force while we pursue this diplomatic path. I'm sending Secretary of State John Kerry to meet his Russian counterpart on Thursday, and I will continue my own discussions with President Putin. I've spoken to the leaders of 2 of our closest allies, France and the United Kingdom, and we will work together in consultation with Russia and China to put forward a resolution at the UN Security Council requiring Assad to give up his chemical weapons and to ultimately destroy them under international control. We'll also give UN inspectors the opportunity to report their findings about what happened on August 21st. And we will continue to rally support from allies from Europe to the Americas, from Asia to the Middle East, who agree on the need for action. Meanwhile, I've ordered our military to maintain their current posture, to keep the pressure on Assad, and to be in a position to respond if diplomacy fails.
Well, that's promising. Well, if you too are looking for a peaceful solution to the problems that you're facing in your life, contact the House of Yahweh and request your free copy of the Prophetic Word magazine and the monthly newsletter. Here's how.
You can write the House of Yahweh at The House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604, or you can call them at 1-800-613-9494. You can visit them on either of their websites. First one is www.yahweh.com or www.yisroelhawkins.com. You can email them at info@yahweh.com, or for any calls outside the United States, please call the number on your screen now.
Stay tuned. Yisroel Hawkins bringing you the peaceful solution that is guaranteed to improve your quality of living. For all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.